Good afternoon, Jamalyn.
Good afternoon, Kim.
How are you?
I'm good. It's a
Good.
Sunday evening,
Yep. We've
gearing up for tomorrow.
listened to the sermon and gotten all
Yes,
charged up for the week.
we're ready to go. It was a beautiful day today.
It was absolutely
I'm trying to do
so.
this couch to 5K thing.
Oh, okay. Are you
Yeah.
still on the couch or?
Well, I got out today and I started listening to the program, and then one of my really good friends from divinity school called while I was doing it. And so I took that opportunity to talk to her, and I walked while I talked to her. So tomorrow, I think I'll start my very first one. We're supposed to have good weather this week here in
It
Indianapolis. So
it's so much easier to get your workout in when you have someone to talk to. I think I do
yeah,
much
I mean,
better.
at least I walked. I didn't stop and sit on the ground and talk to her. So I feel like that's a victory.
Yeah, looking's good. I think you motivate me to return to the elliptical tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah, yeah. It's been 2 weeks, probably maybe longer. It's always longer.
Oh,
So I'll check in with you tomorrow after my work.
okay.
Let you know that I did
Hopefully
some.
by next week when we talk, I will have
Yeah.
done a week of the 5K
Okay.
program.
Hopefully there's
So,
some rest days in there. I don't want to
sure,
burn
sure. I'm
out.
sure I can make them if there aren't.
I think you should.
So today, Dave, and you all continue talking about sacraments. Today we were talking about communion. Um, and I really liked the way he described the sacraments. He said sacraments point us to the ongoing presence of God. So, you have baptism, which, for the people being baptized may feel like it's the jumping off point. But for those in the community who are witnessing it, it's a reminder that Christ's presence is in the water. And then we have communion today. I love, 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 just so I can say how all the pastors are sharing, and you
Uh,
all are bringing different things. Like I loved what you had to say, and I loved what Ashley did and stuff. I mean, it's just nice to get to hear from you all. It's a little extra special that
it
way.
is nice. And what I love, love, love is that we get to do it, but that we pretty much do it independently. However, it all comes together. And I know we have, the amazing John to make sure that happens. But
Yeah.
I also think there's a little power of the Holy Spirit going on that
Yeah.
pulls it all together because it's like, oh, I didn't know actually it was going to say that. And that kind of lines up with something I'm saying. Harry's longing sort of lining up with what I said about this, this feast that's going to happen
Yeah.
that we long for as we have the not so tasty.
Yeah. Well, Margaret was laughing because she couldn't get her cup, the bread out today.
Uh-huh.
And so she was like, well, I guess I wasn't completely invited. I couldn't get my bread open. And Dave said, well, they do tell you at the beginning you're supposed to open it before we get started. She said,
So
we weren't in there. Mom was
if you have
busy
a cup
chatting.
fail or not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's fun to get to hear different stories. We've had lots of comments. Dave told a story about how he and his brother used to break in to the sacristy and eat the little communion wafers. There have been lots of people who've had funny little comments about that, as you can imagine. So, what always makes me laugh when I'm listening to Dave preach is the things that he remembers from seminary. Like I had the same church history professor as him.
Oh,
I can remember the man's name.
okay. Did you
Like
go to class that day?
I went to class all the time. And Dave remembers everything from his class. It's so crazy to me. So, but I did have a memory though when he was talking about how Dr. Um, Steinmetz used to talk about the antenna that communion was like the antenna that would tune us into Christ. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I do too. I mean, I think that I remember, I think everybody touched on this a little bit, like the ritual involved in receiving communion. Seth talked about people walk up, kneel, do the thing,
Yeah.
and peel off. And I could just see these waves of people sort of coming. My church that I grew up in, it was, these fancy silver trays, and they got passed down the aisle, and ushers all you had on white gloves so they didn't touch
Right.
the dishes or whatever. Yeah, how it's but ritual does sort of tune us into this practice. Dave said, sacraments are something we practice, that Jesus has asked us to practice, and that they do point us to something outside of us, connect us to something outside of us.
Well, and that made me think of something because he talked about how while the church was closed and we were all worshiping from our own homes, how we practiced communion every Sunday. And there was something very soothing about participating in that ritual, even though we weren't together. And there was so much uncertainty about when we'd be able to go back out in public and do all of those things. And there was something about having that communion at the end. It was something we remember doing together, and
Mhm.
something that felt familiar, to have that meal together. And so that memory, it really is, very powerful when we're all going in different directions, to be able to have that moment of stillness, to remember the words that Jesus said, and to remember what we're trying to refocus in our own lives, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that that's been one of the gifts of being quarantined, is that it's sort of reinforced the fact that we are all invited, which to me means we can all go get the elements out of the pantry. So it
Yeah.
isn't this mysterious, only I can put the bread
Yeah.
there, but it is this like community of people in lots of different places doing this, having this meal together at the same time. Pretty cool.
Well, and also that anyone can really participate in it. I mean,
Yes.
it's we are changed by taking it. Being not being Catholic, we don't believe that it actually itself
It changes.
changes, but we believe that something happens, for sure, in it. I loved Peggy's story.
Oh, yeah.
So Peggy told a story about a dispute she was having with a friend, who also apparently they went to the same church, and that when they went to go take communion, without even using words, it was that feast, that meal, that helped them, just wipe away whatever that was disturbing them. That it didn't even they didn't even need words. That's what I thought was so
Yeah.
really beautiful about it, is, there can be things going on in your life, and when you study yourself and kind of really focus, what is it, God, that you're trying to reveal to me in this moment, that we can all kind of open our eyes at this meal, like that happened when Jesus was walking to Emmaus, and they broke bread, and all of a sudden they saw Jesus, and then we can have that same experience ourselves too. So I
Yeah,
like that we're
absolutely.
doing it
That
all a lot.
and it was sort of, they had this 3-month dispute that dissolved like instantly. And I hope people really
Instantly.
heard that, because that is exactly what Christ does for us. It's instant. You don't have to, you know, cover yourself in ashes anymore.
Right. Yeah.
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 It's just sort of instant. Her story was
Um, so so this idea that back to the antenna, I wrote in my notes something I thought would be interesting for us to think about, and for our listeners to think about, is, if there's this idea that communion is like the antenna that us into Christ. I believe that's how he said it. Is that right?
yeah, that there are
Yeah.
these, yeah, that Christ is always there, but we need our antenna and our
Yes.
equipment to sort of be in sync with that, uh, that we can't see in order to receive the signal. And I think
And
you were asking, like, what gets in the way? Like, what
yeah,
blocks the
so for me,
frequency?
I was like, what blocks your frequency? Which I think is funny too. I took all my notes here on my calendar. So
Oh,
I I'm like taking notes
Yeah, there you
between
go.
take run errands with Margaret and Nathan's
Yeah,
soccer game. I mean, it's like, well, what are the things that block the frequency? How about dizziness? Could that be
yeah,
one of
for
them?
sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and not for me, it's like not. I need to make that space in the beginning of my day because I find that if I don't, other things always seem to get prioritized over, tuning in to listen. I love what Mother Teresa, I don't know, morally safer or somebody asked her when she was being interviewed what she says when she prays. And she looked at him like he was a little bit crazy. And she said, usually I don't say, I just listen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which, when you're getting ready to take communion, there is like this period where, you can take a moment to pause, like it's not like a drive through McDonald's kind of meal, like you can pause and really think about, what am I searching for? What am I looking for? How do I align myself with Christ so that I am open to receive the meal and open to receive the Spirit at the same time, so that the meal really matters and that it means something.
I love that it is so simple. The elements are so simple, you know, um, for something that's so meaningful.
Yeah. Well, and, it coming out of the Passover, this was the extra little step that Jesus added at the end of their Passover meal. I always would tell like the youth group, it would be like having Thanksgiving dinner, and
Mhm.
instead of saying, okay, now we're gonna have pumpkin pie, it's like, we're gonna eat a lasagna. you know it's like adding a whole new unusual step
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
Thanksgiving meal. And Passover was a time where they remembered being passed over, and so there's still that same sort of feeling behind it. This memory, we remember what Christ did for us. We remember the part we played in it. We remember that, like you said, it can be whatever's burdening you can be gone in an instant, if we really allow ourselves to be taken over by the meal.
And I think what one of your professors said about teaching children about baptism, when we baptize them as infants, then it's our responsibility to continue teaching them the meaning of that. I think the
Yeah,
same goes for communion, that we need to do it regularly and we need to also be talking about like what this means. What are you bringing? What are you leaving? What are you taking?
yeah. So the other thing that Dave talked about was that communion, he said there's these four um, verbs or actions: it takes, it blesses, it breaks, and it gives. I thought that was really great.
I did too.
So maybe we do what comes to you when you hear the takes part?
That Christ has always taken, we're created in God's image. So we've already been taken, accepted. Christ takes us no matter where we are or what we've done. And blesses us in
Yeah.
spite of that. You know?
Yeah, I always love when I'm watching someone offering communion, when they take the cup and the bread and they lift it up and say, "In Christ, in God, you offered, Christ blessed it." Now
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I haven't
Yep,
done
blessed it.
communion in
Yeah, you're
forever.
not standing on the chancel, so the words don't.
I need to like have a
Muscle
full loaf
memory's
of
not at
bread.
play here.
Yeah. But I always love that part where they lift it and look, it's like
Yeah,
so like, we don't really take our at dinner
it's like
table.
the antenna almost. It's like
Oh yeah,
like
look
you're
at
really
that.
like tuning in to
Yeah.
God's presence. Yeah, in those moments where you lift
It
the
becomes
elements.
central.
Yeah,
And then breaks. There's obviously the breaking of the bread, but then there's also, you go back to Peggy and her friend. There was a breaking of ego, really, when those folks were when they were eye to eye. What I loved about her story is how she said, "I was the one who did it. I
I
was the
love
one."
that too. Yeah.
You know, it's
She
a
told the whole story.
mhm,
Yeah, love that. And I think of
mhm.
breaking, like we are broken, but the pouring too. When Dave said breaks or pours, I thought about when you pour something, it really makes a mess, right? So when we pour ourselves out for God, we're messiness. You
Yeah,
know, God doesn't care.
yeah,
God takes that and does something with
yeah. The breaks, too. It just, I continue to to think about what it means to really be vulnerable in this process. Like I had a really good friend from seminary. Every time the words of institution are read, he would always turn his palms up,
it.
to like really kind of receive them. And I always really liked that he did that, that I kind of copied that a little bit as a way of, and he would always wait until those words. So it was like understanding the prayer over the elements that he wanted to receive it just as much too. And you're also in a more vulnerable state when your hands are up than
Yeah,
palms
and
up
open.
than
And
palms
sometimes
down.
I tell people who are like holding on to something, like you can still hold something in your hands even when they're like this. So if
Yeah.
you hold lightly, you make space for what needs to fall out, and what needs to drop in to drop. Just trust that God is always doing that.
Ooh, I like that. Say that again. So when your palms are up.
So when your palms are up and you're holding on to something lightly, as opposed to like just, if you just hold lightly, you can still hold. And you can also make space for things that you need to release to drop while goodness and blessing and what you need drops in and stays
Oh, I like that so much.
there. Yeah.
That's really good. Um, okay, so there was another kind of aha moment was this notion of symbol of communion versus is. Now, did you say that?
David said, Christ said, Jesus said, this is
Is, yeah,
my body. This is my blood.
yeah.
God is a
And
representation of.
yeah. Well, and so the final piece is one of my favorite things as a pastor that I love about communion is after right before you serve it, when we get this really cool experience to get to say at the United Methodist Church, we believe in an open table. Any of those who have a relationship with Jesus Christ or desire a relationship with Jesus Christ are welcome to come forward. And it is such a freeing thing to be able to say, come on, everybody, come on,
Yes.
get on up here. Um, and even if you don't have it figured out just yet, but you desire it, that opens yourself up to this transformative experience as well.
Yeah. I love that. Harry said we're always making room for someone else. And I love that about the United Methodist Church. Like, just come try it out.
Yeah,
Just come try it out.
right.
We're going to be with you when you do.
And this idea that communion brings all these different kinds of people to a table who maybe would not eat together otherwise.
Yeah.
It helps you really think about what having a feast and who should be invited to that feast
I think that
is
is
really
like
about.
just a beautiful image of kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all king in God's eyes.
Yeah. One big long table. I have a friend that says when you disagree with someone, maybe that means you just need to buy a longer table.
Oh, I like that.
Uh-huh.
I like
Just extend it a little bit further because you can learn, from not agreeing with someone, you can learn a totally different viewpoint.
absolutely.
Um,
And don't we need that today? We need to
oh,
extend the table
yeah,
and include all the voices and just keep talking.
just, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so it
That's a
was,
great place to, we could go on and on, but I
I know
do
that
believe
was
that
really
God
good.
wants us to
Um,
end.
I can, I, um, I can hear Dave making our blue apron downstairs for dinner.
Oh, nice. Byron's cooking also.
What are you
So
guys having?
He's making some sort of chicken on the grill, and I think I'm supposed to come up with some stuff. So that's a little.
So potato chips.
I think I have some zucchini. We should do outtakes for sure. This one might not make it, but once I was serving communion in a congregation of folks who didn't fit in morning service, so it was an evening service, but it was lovely. All kinds of people, all kinds of challenges and gifts. But a person was helping with communion who was a little schizoaffective. So the person was kind of having a conversation about, you're going to drop it. No, I'm not. I'm going to drop it. No, I'm not.
But talking to themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
as people were coming, to do it was intinction. So there was a lot of, or not.
But how wonderful that they were leading
great.
worship.
That's what we're talking about. Like,
I know.
everyone should be invited, and we should make space for folks.
Yeah.
It was lovely, and no juice got dropped.
And if it had, it would have been okay.
It would have been fine. Even a broken chalice would have been fine.
It would have been fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been totally fine.
Well, this is fun. Enjoy your evening. Have a great week.
And if potato chips don't work, you can always go with popcorn.
Okay, I got both.
Mix the popcorn up with the chicken.
That sounds good.
It's kind of salty,
Little trail mix.
Yeah. All right, everybody.
All right.
Have a wonderful week.
Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.